Hi, this is Robert from Benzo Withdrawal. It has been 2 years since I started this journey, and it's been a year, 3.5 months since I made my jump and had my last benzo. For those of you that have followed my story, you know that it has been a very, very tough road, and so I wanted to do some follow-up, and while I am better, I'm certainly not well. I suffer from very, very stiff head pain, back of my neck, shoulders, back pain, terrible tinnitus, dizziness, and crushing fatigue. So those are just some of the items that going to a uneducated doctor to do this taper left me with, that I'm still struggling with now 2 years down the road. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is I've got a letter that I've written to the doctor that I sent to him. And as you have to be very careful with doctors and psychiatrists, because if you put anything in there that's threatening, you get yourself in trouble. These psychiatrists could have you locked up. They could, have you drugged, and these are not really good people. And I'll show you some of that later on with a statement by Peter Bregan, a 60-year Harvard-trained psychiatrist who calls psychiatrists the most dangerous thing you can do in the Western world today. There's also information, if you take a look, and anybody knows who Jordan Peterson is. Jordan is a world-famous lecturer, thinker, and Toronto professor. He's got millions of followers on YouTube. He's written best-selling novels, and he wound up almost dead in Russia because of benzodiazepine going through 2 treatment centers, I think one in Toronto and the other one in New York City, and that almost killed him. And they couldn't find anything in the United States either to help them out. So there will be that. And then the other thing is that along the way here, I would love to see a hashtag for us. I would like to see if we can start the hashtag Doctors Injured Me Too. Okay? And start putting out your stories. One of the things that happens, I think that happens with us, is that we go to the doctors, they hurt us. We go back to them, they treat us even worse when we go back. They don't understand that it is their treatment and the way they've set up the protocols that are doing more damage. And so we leave and we allow the doctors to just walk away scot-free. When I was growing up as a small child, I was taught that I was never, ever to allow anybody to put their hands on me. I was a child, a schoolmate. Nobody was allowed to touch me, and if they were, I was to fight back. And that was the same thing for professionals, teachers, police, stand your ground. I have that privilege because I'm a white kid. It didn't always work, but I stood my ground. And teachers and doctors, because somehow that we've given these people mythical status that they don't make any mistakes. As I said in a previous letter, number 3 outside of COVID right now, number 3 before COVID, cause of death in the United States were medical mistakes. Okay, doctor injuries, iatrogenic injuries. We have to be very careful because remember, when you're sitting across from one of these doctors, and you take one of their prescriptions, now you're a mental health patient. And as a mental health patient, now the narrative that's going into their files, their computer files, is their narrative. It has nothing to do with you. It comes from their perspective of what you're sitting at. And they may meet you once every 6 months, and they're, with this pseudoscience psychiatry, making determinations of who you are and inputting that in their computers. So it's their narrative, and it's actually their narrative also to protect themselves. So you have to fight back and get your own narrative out there. So one of the things that I've done is I was really, really, really badly injured by this moron doctor. And the more I brought it up and the more I pushed against him, the angrier he got and the more defensive he got and the more he tried to hurt me. That's the way I felt. Okay, it seemed like that. The evidence seems like that, but that's how it felt. I got to the point where I had to switch a doctor, and then that didn't work out, and I left completely. So that's what happens, is we leave, and the doctors, like I said in one thing, I was going He was making plans to go to lunch. I was making plans to go home and die. So this is the letter that I wrote, and this can be a template for you, for those of you that may wish to reach out to your doctor and express to them how you feel about what they did to you. Remember, these people are not gods, okay? But you have to be careful. You can't threaten them. So you have to state the facts as you see them, as you felt as though they happened. And then this becomes part of your narrative so that they don't get to control all that. So this is to the doctor that injured me, and here's the letter, and this is how it goes. From the desk of me, Robert, Dr. Mirou Dom, VA Santa Ana Clinic, Santa Ana, California. To Dr. Dom, my life as I knew it would end 40 days after you had me do your uneducated taper. You single-handedly destroyed my health and my life as I had known it for 64 years. From a 20-minute appointment. It has been 2 years since my life-altering, life-shattering, destroying meeting with you. Up to that point, I was a high-functioning person with a great life. Within 40 days, that would all change. Okay, you are the single most destructive human encounter I have ever had, and you brought me closer to death in more mind-bending pain than anything I've ever experienced in my 65 years on this life on this planet. And as you know it, and it's not even close, my worst experience before you was I was robbed, stabbed, dragged into an alley in San Juan, Puerto Rico, while working for Eastern Airlines. I had my face sliced open with a gaping hole. They took a bottle to me and peeled my face back. Okay, they left me in an alley, they stabbed me, they robbed me, they threw trash on me, and I almost bled to death. And that was a walk in the park compared to what you did to me. Okay, this is one of the reasons why they prescribed the medications a year later for PTSD. And as we know, benzodiazepines are not for PTSD. So that's another doctor that made a mistake. Okay, that life-altering experience was a walk in the park compared to what you have done and continue to do to me because of your staggering ignorance on this subject. Combined with a seemingly overinflated ego and a know-it-all attitude, he knew everything. He didn't know anything. Know-it-all attitude, and that combination in arrogance makes you exceptionally dangerous to patients like me dealing with this iatrogenic injury from doctor-prescribed medication. I am a year free of these drugs and all medications, but still living a nightmare with PAWS, protracted acute withdrawal syndrome, which you stated you knew nothing about, brought on by your over-rapid, disastrous taper protocol. This was exactly what I was trying to get you to listen to in the meeting, and you just brushed me off with any and all of my concerns. A baby dose. I know what I'm doing. I've done it before. Clearly, from everything that I know now, you didn't have a clue. You didn't know what you were doing. And from my perspective, and from the devastating results following your sophomoric, dangerous, destructive benzo taper protocols, and the living hell that I descended into and continue to be into this day, I believe you should not be allowed to treat anybody with this issue. Okay, this is a complex issue that needs careful and complex set of protocols with support, compassion, and time, which you provided zero of. You just winged it. Imagine that, winged it with my life, not his, winged it with mine. Okay, let me scroll up there. Okay. Winged it with reckless, dangerous, life-threatening, life-altering, naive, uneducated protocols with seemingly little regard for me, the patient. 40 days after implementing your protocols, I experienced a descent into a living hell and a nightmare at the hands, and that continues to this day that you cannot fathom. You treated me like my life was a roll of the dice. You know, get them in, get them out. You looked at me in the eyes, and after I raised concerns and told me I was on a baby dose. I was on, at that time, 0.1 milligrams of Xanax, which is 2.5 milligrams twice a day, plus 10 milligrams of Ambien for over 14 years, taken as prescribed and never abused. 0.5 milligrams of Xanax is equal to 10 milligrams of Valium, and my RX was equivalent to 20 milligrams of Valium. Even at 0.5 milligrams of Xanax, which equals 10 milligrams of Valium, this is nothing close to a baby dose. And the recommendation after tapering is to get the Xanax down to an equivalent dose of 0.5 milligrams of Valium, or about 0.025 milligrams of clonazepam or Xanax. Or to explain it to you that you might understand it, eliminate through a structured, precise, tapered 95% of the drug over a long period of time before jumping, doing it slowly so the brain and the central nervous system can adjust and heal. My brain's chemistry and that of my central nervous system have been altered by these drugs, and that does not return to normal in 4 weeks after 14 years of use. Okay, this cannot be done even in a rehab properly and is not recommended. You had no clue what these drugs' equivalency were. You had me do it in 4 weeks by hand breaking pills and then breaking half pills, which is a terrible, dangerous, potentially deadly protocol. And this should have taken a year or longer to do it safely with regular check-ins and support. This is why vets are dying and they're taking their lives now, I believe, because of this horrible life-altering experience that I went through. I also believe I have PTSD from this terrible experience with you. 2 years later, mostly still bedridden, all my life's work of eating right, being dedicated to the gym, have been laid to waste. When you crushed my brain and central nervous system, you demolished my physical health as well. And my body is now atrophied and weak. It is. I mean, I got a t-shirt on, but I am nowhere near the person I was 2 years ago. I'm a shell of that person. The literal living hell that you descended to me into was otherworldly on a scale of pain I could not have ever comprehended or fathomed. And all you were concerned about was your ego. In dire straits from what you did to me in your office, you kicked me to the curb when I was spiraling downwards. You were making plans for lunch that day when I went home thinking I was going to die alone. The fact that you could not admit or recognize the severity of the physical and emotional distress I was in due to what you had me do in October 2018, when I told you I had had a seizure before, speaks volumes to your lack of understanding or whether you even gave a shit. Okay? Harvard-educated and world-renowned psychiatrist Peter now says the single most dangerous thing a person can do in the Western world outside of dangerously illegal activities is to see a psychiatrist. And he goes on to say why these people are so dangerous. You, from my personal experience, fit his description of dangerous. You never took into consideration my age, length of time on the medication, or considered that this drug had changed the chemistry of my brain and central nervous system. That would have actually taken some time, like an extra 30 minutes to an hour. What was the rush after all this time I had been on these medications? All you had to do was spend 30 minutes online, and the info was there for you to review and get re-educated. These are the items that I brought in twice. I know how dare I advocate for myself with you since I didn't know you and you didn't know me. How dare I ask questions of you, Dr. Dom, because you're so smart and you know everything. So why listen to your patient, right? We don't know anything. Who are we? You're the doctor. By the way, that's not in the letter. The Ashton Manual, the most comprehensive study ever done on benzos, withdrawing from them with tables, tapers, issues, symptoms, pause. It's considered the Bible on this subject. I asked you if you've ever heard of it. You said no. Protracted acute withdrawal syndrome from benzos. Asked if you had ever heard of it. No again. BenzoBuddies.org with over 60,000 people who have had these issues and have gone because doctors have failed them. Have you ever heard of this, doctor? No. Okay. Benzo Information Coalition. The Benzo Information Coalition is about educating the adverse effects of benzodiazepine as taken as prescribed. I asked him again, have you ever taken this? And he said no. I brought you the most up-to-date, comprehensive information on this subject, and you refused to even look at it. As a matter of fact, on the second time I brought it in, you pushed it off the desk into my lap. Okay? And we'll get to that part. And you said to me, I brought you, in my deepest suffering in December in your office, you said to me, and I quote, because I had complained to other people about he didn't know what he was doing with this and I was so injured. People have told me here you don't like me and you don't think I know what I'm doing. When you bring me in these items and want me to read them, you make me feel like you don't think I know what I'm doing. I'm sitting in your office beyond injured. My life is crushed and it's your ego you're concerned about and not my health. This, sir, was utterly despicable, and how dare you treat me that day with your anger and the how you treated me that day with your anger and tried then to hurt me even more, cutting off the medications, saying that referring me to a substance abuse treatment center, that kind of stuff, putting it in my records to make me look like a drug addict. Unforgivable. You just kept piling on. My health was of little regard to you at this particular point. I mean, how dare I challenge you? How dare I? This drug had downregulated my GABA in my brain, but my GABA is also in 70% of my bones, nerves, body, gut, brains, and organs. Without a careful drawdown of this drug, my brain and central nervous system went into extreme distress, and I had no time to heal. The drug should have never been prescribed to me in the way that it was, for the duration it was, and the continually renewed by you doctors. Okay, you never asked for my previous medical records or contacted my primary physician here in Orange County. I know, I asked her. Okay, you did zero due diligence on treating me before you had me do this. Okay, my only sin is I trusted you as a doctor and that you knew what you were doing, and you did not even remotely. Knowing what I know now, to try to save my life through exhaustive research and outreach online, I know today that you are utterly clueless when it comes to these medications, and witnessed firsthand that when things went terribly wrong at your direction, it was not your fault. This happened. The patient was to blame, when in reality you did this to me. This is all you. The third leading cause of death in the United States is medical mistakes, with over 250,000 people dying each year from doctors, and that's not even including, those like myself who are maimed, severely injured, or they have their lives destroyed because of careless or ignorant physicians. I had developed a dependence, not an addiction, due to the time on the medication, and was having symptoms of intraday withdrawal because of the short half-life of Xanax. And while I was experiencing all these different symptoms, my GABA no longer functioned. Without the benzo being the key to the GABA production. Looking back, every issue I had medically since the beginning of taking this drug was from doctor-prescribed drugs, and you doctors never ever spotted this or even considered the possibility or raised a single concern. Your collective solutions, more drugs, and never ever considered that it was your medications that were the real problem. That being said, and knowing what I know today, this process should have been done with great care. This is why I did the research and brought in my concerns and began with you to have them completely ignored and summarily dismissed out of hand. Drive-by doctoring, get them in, get them out fast. Your complete and total lack of understanding about benzodiazepine is staggering and life-threatening to patients who may come and seek help to try to eliminate this horrible and destructive doctor-prescribed medication, taken as prescribed, from their lives. And you had zero compassion and treated me like I was a street addict once the damage was done. Okay? Not comprehending it was your ignorant protocols that you were seeing manifesting in me because I was having an ongoing brain and central nervous injury from what you had me do. And my life and my health were in rapid decline. When I saw you in October, you were utterly clueless, and I believe you thought me to be a drug-seeking when the opposite was true. The place you put me in has no medication solution to help me or heal me, and now, except in time, in years, you left me to suffer with no way out. A prison of nightmarish suffering non-stop is what you left me with. Thanks. Good job, doctor. Okay. You are simply clueless and frankly seemed indifferent to the pain and suffering you have caused me. I lived 64 years before meeting you in relatively good health and fit. I worked on it my entire life. I was social. I had a big life. Then I met you, and your ignorance shattered my life and work staying fit and healthy. As I said, my only sin here is I trusted you knew what you were doing as a doctor, the single most catastrophic mistake of my life. When we met, we talked about Anthony Bourdain. He had hung himself, and come to find out that he had a therapeutic, I guess your baby dose, of Xanax in him, as did Kate Spade, and Chris Cornell had Ativan. Suicide ideation is a side effect symptom of the drug, especially when reduced. As I sought to taper from this drug, a myriad of systems arose, and that's why I sought help. Little did I know that using my VA benefits for the first time in my life would be the single most destructive thing I would ever do in my life at the hands of an ignorant doctor, you. You took a big, healthy, life-loving man trying to get these doctor-prescribed medications out of my body and my mind and demolished me when I came to help, and you single-handedly have destroyed my life as I had known it with your ignorance. And it also landed me in the ER 9 months later in so much pain I had to be carried into the ER. The ER doctor that my central nervous system had been very severely damaged by the rapid taper. Your oath is here, do no harm. Well, you know, it's an all or nothing ego. Well, your know-it-all attitude almost killed me. I fight every day with the side effects of what you had me do. I'm not going away on this. My healing and health, it comes first right now. We'll see what the California Medical Board does. But even with them, I will continue through whatever legal means necessary to find some kind of justice for what you did to me. Okay? If you didn't have the MD at the end of your name and did this to a person, you could possibly be arrested for felony assault. I would probably have gotten the same results if I had just stood up in your office and you took a baseball bat to my head and beat me unconscious. Medical battery and malpractice. Look for that in the future with me. What you had do to me, you stole so much from me. Time, memories, opportunity, life moments. My mother was ill and in decline in the past year, but because I was so injured by you, I was unable to visit her and say goodbye. And in the end, when she passed, I was unable to go to her funeral. I simply don't know how I'll ever reconcile that with myself. You have no clue. And believe you could care less the hell you would put me through on a daily basis as I lie in bed with pause. I have had the past 2 years, my head screeching with catastrophic Category 5 tinnitus, with no let-up from your overly rapid taper, dangerous taper, with my head pounding, flushed face, light head sensitivity, severe pain, internal body pain, and other symptoms caused by you. I suffer every day, every minute, every second of every day because of you. I rue the day our paths cross. As I said, you are the single most dangerous, destructive human encounter in my 65 years on this planet, and I've been through some really, really tough shit. Tough times. The appointment with you is the day that you killed my health, stole my life, and demolished my soul. I'm a shell of the man I was before I walked into your office, and make no mistake about it, you did this to me, not the drugs. You did this with your ignorance. I believe that the private doctor group you belong to needs to be informed about this matter as well. Truly, and I signed off. So that's the letter that I sent to him. Now, the reason why that's important is because I filed a complaint with the California Medical Board, the VA, and through congressmen and stuff like that. And during this time, I don't know if you remember or not, but during this time, I switched over to another doctor, okay, within the VA, because I complained so heavily about how I was being treated with this. And so he stopped being my mental health care doctor at that facility, and I went to another doctor. So now I wrote this letter to him, and I'll be curious to see whether or not he put it in my file or if he put it in the trash file. So I'm going to let the California board know that I sent this letter to him and see if he forwarded that, because they asked for my medical records. More's coming here. I'm going to sign off here right now for this. Thank you.